Toastmasters, Mr. Toastmaster, honored guest Spencer, I'd like to wish you all a happy, belated Thanksgiving. For us, for those of us who've grown up in Canada, it's something that comes fairly natural. Usually our Toastmasters group is fairly representative of Canada's essential value of creating a cultural mosaic. Bashar, I believe you are from
Middle East.
Middle East. William, you're from
China.
China. We have German with Richard. We have an African from Kenya, Nelson Muriyuki. Thank you. Pershing as well from China. And for many of us, we may not necessarily have a full understanding of what Thanksgiving is about, nor perhaps understand that it has taken on a new political significance over the course of perhaps the last 10, 15 years. So let's talk about Thanksgiving, the history of Thanksgiving first of all. In 1621, it's reputed that the very first instance of Thanksgiving took place when the Plymouth Pilgrims were saved by the Wampanoag people, who in the first winter provided them with the means to survive, and then the following summer taught them how to grow corn and how to live off the land and be able to move forward through fishing eel and hunting game and growing other staples in their yards. So not only did the First Nations people there give the Plymouth Pilgrims the metaphorical fish with which to eat, they also taught them how to fish and saved them. And from that, we had our first Thanksgiving celebration to celebrate the bountiful harvest that God had provided them, that was shared between the 50 surviving Plymouth Pilgrims and 90 First Nations people. From there, English began and continued a policy of first claiming land, exploiting the land, and moving forward, and changing conditions within that area. That created an environment that continued to push natives, First Nations people, further and further from their traditional places. Moving forward about 150 years, we came across Pontiac. Pontiac was more than just a car. He was also an Ottawa chief who led the first rebellion against the white incursion. Dissatisfied with what had happened after the French had lost the 7 Years' War and the English took over control of all of the areas that had been taken care of by the French, Pontiac was able to create a confederacy of First Nations groups in the area, and they rebelled against the English, who were led by a man by the name of Sir Geoffrey Amherst. Sir Geoffrey Amherst, like many of the others, all thought that the First Nations people were ignorant savages who would certainly shriek against the might of the British Empire. Now, our friend Pontiac, not one to shirk his responsibility, unfazed and undaunted by the challenge before him, was able to capture 8 forts and lay siege to Fort Detroit for 100 years, or excuse me, for a year, before people started to leave. For his good doings, it is reputed that Sir Geoffrey Amherst put smallpox into the blankets, gave it to, traded with the people, and then spread smallpox through the Iroquois people who were, excuse me, not the Iroquois people, the Seneca people and the Delaware people who were fighting him. So considered to be the first case of the use of biological warfare. It created, obviously, issues. It was also known as a war that was very, very violent and caused a lot of issues for people throughout. A lot of displaced people, like we're seeing today with happening in Syria. The same thing was happening with colonists and people at the time. Now fast forward another 100 years, another Native American First Nations hero, Tecumseh. Tecumseh was somebody who was an Osage Shawnee chief who helped to keep Canada Canadian in the War of 1812. Again, also very worried about Western expansion of the English and the Americans. Found that he had a lesser evil with the Canadian and the British representation of by Sir Isaac Brock. Brock referred to Tecumseh as the Wellington of the Indians. and described him as a more sagacious or more gallant warrior does not exist. Tecumseh came to Brock's aid. We were able to repel the Americans during the War of 1812, and those Canadian and British forces eventually made their way down south and burnt down the White House. Sacked Washington, ate their food, drank their wine, burned down the house, and then left. It is one great moment in Canadian history, war history. Yeah, those of us who know about it are super proud, but there's lots of argument they say that maybe it wasn't quite as clear cut as that, but I believe it. That said, after that, again, continued Western expansion with the continued policy of claim the land, colonize the space, exploit the resources, and push people to the west. Dominate nature, make it your own, which contrasted all the way throughout First Nation culture, which was based around harmony between the flora and the fauna, understanding that we are part of nature and that we are stewards of the land. Now, today, this year, we've just gone through the opening and the exhibition of the Truth and Reconciliation Council, after we've gone through facing up to putting children into residential homes, taking them from their families, destroying culture, and now living with the aftermath. So when one gives Thanksgiving, the political aspect of it now has become who gives thanks for the original gift of love and welcoming and support has been turned to the systematic use of claim, colonize, exploit, eradicate. So for us, white people who grew up, that's not our fault, but it is perhaps something that we need to come and reconcile. Thank you very much, Toastmasters, Spencer. Happy Thanksgiving.